Hey nerds, what's up? I'm gonna be racing the clock right now because I technically have to go back to work in 8 minutes, but my work is, right behind me. Today's video is going to be my April wrap up. I read quite a few books. In the month of April, I read 9 books. I also definitely overdid my average page count for April. I'm very proud of myself, and right now I'll lead you into some stats. Spreadsheet that I use, you've seen it before if you've been watching the wrap-ups this year. Allie from Hardback Hoarder made this, so I'll link her up above. But here is everything that I've read so far coming up to April, and actually since May 7th because I haven't finished anything. But we're going to look at the monthly stats here. We can look at the yearly stats real quick. My reading goal is 52 and I'm currently 67% to that. Average days to finish a book is 4 days. Nothing really has changed much in all of this, and this will be more entertaining at the end of the year. So moving into monthly stats, we're looking at April here, which is this category and the column. So I read 10 books in the month of April, which we're slowly getting up, if you see that, just one book extra. But look at the pages read in comparison. So this month in April I read 4,642 pages compared to 3,400 in March, compared to 25 and then 29. So we're slowly rearing up, and I'm really interested to see what May will look like, because if you have a little hint right here, I haven't finished anything 7 days in yet. Again, I never know where these hours listens to comes from. It must be some sort of average, but I don't know. And then my star rating was an average of a 4.05. So that's a high rating. That's the highest rating except for January that I've had so far. So it was a good reading month. I reread 2 books. I had 2 books that were own voices. As far as genres go, I had 2 contemporaries, 4 fantasies, 2 paranormals, 1 sci-fi, 1 thriller. Love to see these genres spread out like that. And then as far as formats go, 5 audiobooks, 1 ebook, and 4 physical books. Again, this is really surprising, just like it was in February, because I am still working from home. Although I did notice in April that I did have to drive a little bit more. I went and got my hair done, things like that, so I did have a little bit more of a drive. As far as audience goes, we had 2 adult books, 2 new adults, and 6 YA. So I'd like to see the adult and new adult a little bit higher, but if you combine those 2, then you have 4 versus 6 YA, and that's a pretty good average for me. And then I read 10 female authors. I read 1 Asian, 1 Black, 7 white, and 1 unknown authors. So we're still in pretty much the same place we've been. I've talked about that in previous videos. I read 1 debut author, 4 authors that I had read before, and 5 authors that were new to me. And then ratings, I had 3 5 stars, 2 4.5s, 1 4, 2 3.5s, 1 3, 1 2.5. So all really high ratings, hence the high average, which I was really happy to see. Definitely 2 of the 5 stars are rereads, so it's not surprising that I had those. Those are my stats for April. I hope you guys enjoy. So those are my stats for the month, but going from least favorite to favorite of the month. Let's do this. Okay, so starting off, I read We Are the Ashes, We Are the Fire by Joy McCullough. And this book I got on NetGalley in exchange for an honest review, which I have now read and reviewed. And this book was not what I thought it was going to be, unfortunately. I thought that this book was going to be one in prose. Yeah, I thought it was that. It's not. And I also thought that this book wasn't young adult, but it is. So I was kind of thrown for a loop at the very beginning. This book is about a girl whose older sister, when she's in college, was raped by somebody on campus. And before the story really gets going, we know the result of the court case and everything like that. And it's very Brock Turner-esque, where he's found guilty, but no, he doesn't really get a sentence. And it's kind of all about that. It has this very feminist lens in the book, and overall, I don't know, it felt very, very much preachy, which I think is a good thing to be out there. I think somebody is going to learn from this book, but that's just not where I'm at in my need for feminist writing. I don't need to be taught the base understanding of rape is bad, but that's not the reason that I didn't love this book, although it definitely wasn't to my enjoyment level. On top of that, we have our main character, again, who's the younger sister of the girl who was raped, and she is taking it all on herself to really like get the word out. She's a part of the school newspaper, so she's like writing articles on what's going on. She's like making a hashtag on Twitter and all this stuff, and none of her sister doesn't want any of that, and is very upset with her about it, and the younger sister isn't really doing anything in the form of listening to the person who everything has happened to. It's a very interesting dynamic. It felt realistic. I didn't feel like any sort of like learning curve really happened at all when it came to stuff like that. It like kind of tried to do it, but it didn't do it very well in my opinion. And yeah, it was trying to do something really great, and I think it just fell really flat for me as far as that goes. There is a non-binary side character in this book, so we have a little bit of representation in here. There's also a lot of kind of best friend hate in this book, and I just was not about that. That really, really struck me hard, and I didn't get along with that part of the book at all. We have our main character, and her best friend is, again, this non-binary side character. There's like this weird fighting and hatred towards, like, our main character has thoughts that are very negative towards their best friend. It's very weird. I did not like it. So that is really what I didn't like about this book. Again, it didn't feel like it did everything wrong. It just was not the book for me, that's for sure. There's no way I'm going to finish this video in 3 minutes. Okay. So the next book that I read was The Archived. So I read The Archived and The Unbound for my TBR challenge, my Touching My Shelf challenge that I do every month. The challenge was to read an entire series. So I read this duology, I read The Archived, and of course then The Unbound, and I gave The Archived 3 stars, and then I gave The Unbound 3.5. Honestly, the 3.5 was a little liberal. It was just fine. These two books are very similar plot to City of what's that book called? Her Bones series, Tunnel of Bones is the sequel, I think. I don't remember what the first one's called. City of Ghosts. Very similar to that plot line as far as like the paranormal stuff goes. So we follow this main character who's a junior or about to be a junior, and when she was 12, her grandfather died, and he gave her the rite of passage to becoming a keeper, I think. Or maybe not a keeper, I think. So basically, she gets called to put the ghosts back where they go when they die, because when they get out of like their coffin kind of a thing, then they kind of go crazy and they can become super dangerous. So she goes into the in-between of like where those ghosts are kept and the real world and puts them back into where they belong. It was weird. It also read very, very young. I thought that she, who's supposed to be a junior or a senior maybe even this coming year, at the very beginning of the book, I thought she was in 8th grade. Like, it just did not read that age. It read way younger than even the young age that she's supposed to be. I also didn't love the whole kind of plot just falls a little bit flat for me, because we have this, these teenagers are the ones who are in charge of this very important thing, and I don't really understand why the like underground secret society that are these people who make sure our ghosts stay where they're supposed to be would be hiring 16-year-olds to do this, because they can't just like leave whenever they need to leave. Obviously they have school, they have all this shit to do. So it seems like not the best choice when they have to keep it a secret. They can't tell their parents, obviously. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me. And now I have to go to work. Like I talked about, The Archived and The Unbound, 3-star, 3.5-star. The series is fine. I think maybe it's partially just that they are older series. I've seen stuff like this before. I think V. Schwab's writing has like continued to get better as time goes on. So even though City of Ghosts was made for a younger audience, they feel very similar as far as like the age category goes, and I think City of Ghosts was written better, but that makes sense because it was written like 6 years later. Like, I would hope that the writing would get better, right? I also read Caraval this month in April, and I gave this book a 3.5 stars. This is a first book in a series by Stephanie Garber. I will not be continuing the series. I don't think that I think this book ended nicely and well enough, and it wasn't a good enough series to want to continue. But this book is about a girl and her sister who they've been obsessed with this like Caraval. It's like a carnival that comes around every year, and their dad is abusive, and so they're kind of using it to try to escape, kind of a thing. It ends up being a very, like, oops, we made it into this, like, game situation thing that's happening. It was weird. I think the concept is really cool. The kind of magic was kind of fun. But overall, I've seen books and movies that have done this type of plot better. So, it was a solid book, 3.5. It was fine. The next book that I read was a 4-star read, and it was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This book is really, really well done, but it is also very, very fucked up. So this book we follow 20 years ago when our main character, her name is Vanessa. Duh, I'm an idiot. My Dark Vanessa. Hello. So 20 years ago, she was a junior in high school, and or a freshman in high school. She starts getting groomed by her English teacher, and then we follow her 20 years later as an adult, and the aftermath of that teacher being announced, or somebody announces that he sexually assaulted them when they were in high school, and that person is a little bit younger than Vanessa herself, and it's a really dark, like, fucked up, reality that Vanessa doesn't really know that she even accepts that she wasn't consensual in this relationship that she had with this teacher for many, many years, and there's other stuff going on too, and it was really good, but you need to be in the right mindset for it. There's a lot of trigger warnings for rape, sexual assaults, PTSD, all of that good stuff, drinking and drug abuse. Yeah, it's a deep, dark book. So, moving on. Okay, then I also read The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book in a series, which I actually didn't know that it was a series, because I suck. But this is a sci-fi, like, kind of either like super future of Earth, or it's like a different Earth. We don't really, I think that it's a future Earth, but basically all of these, the Earth is really, struggling, and it's kind of really dangerous, and there's a bunch of different things that have 3 different perspectives about what's going on, and there's also some people who have the ability to, like, control these seasons, so, like, there's earthquakes, and they can, like, make the earthquakes either stop, or they can make earthquakes happen, and all this stuff, and yeah, it's really good. It's really hard to explain because there's a lot of stuff that comes up, and obviously it's spoilery, and I don't really know how to explain it without giving anything away of what you do or don't know. It's really good. I really liked it. This book did take me like a hot minute to really get into, though. I didn't really start really liking it until maybe 40% of the way through, and I think it's just because it had a lot of learning to do. It's a very intricate setup, and you don't really know even your 3 perspectives. You're a little bit lost on, so it does take a minute to get into, but I really enjoyed it by the end. Another 4.5 out of 5-star book, which was The Girls Ive Been by Tess Sharp. This book was also a NetGalley ARC, and it's so good. I started reading it in March, and then I put it down because I got into touching my shelf and all of this stuff, and I really loved it. I could have read this book in one go had I not been, like, weirdly placed with the readathon in the middle of it, but this book follows a girl whose mom is a con artist, and so she has this, like, background in history, but she doesn't do cons anymore. And so her girlfriend, and her ex-boyfriend, who's also her best friend, get accidentally involved in a bank robbery. They're like 3 of the people who are in the bank when everything happens, and it's about her figuring out how to con the bank robbers, like, so that they stay alive and well. And it was really good. And you also get the back timeline, the history of her as a con artist with her mom and stuff too. That story was really, really good. And there's lots of trigger warnings in this book too for things like sexual abuse and abuse and all sorts of really fucked up things. You also have a bisexual main character. Fucking love to see it. I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This was a reread for me. I am coming up to prep for A Court of Silver Flames, which I was also supposed to read in April and it didn't happen, so I am planning on reading it in March. But yeah, wanted to reread these before I went into it, and I just love it so much. This series is great. I love it. If you don't know what A Court of Thorns and Roses is about, the first book is about a girl named Feyre who lives near the wall on the human side of the territory, and everybody really hates fairies who are on the north side of the wall, but they've been in this like treaty and whatever, and she accidentally kills a fae wolf, and then because of that she gets taken into the spring court for punishment. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling to start off, and then there's lots of other things that happen. Really like it. I really, really, really like it. And then lastly, I read Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyan. This was a 5-star read for me, and it is also the start of a new series. I'm planning on reading the sequel in May. I'm so excited. So that's a little tidbit for May, TBR, that'll be coming after this video. Before this video, it's already up. What am I talking about? It's already on my channel. I'll link it up above. Yeah, fucking loved this one. So this is about a girl named Lei, I think. Yeah, Lei, who, because of the color of her eyes, the Empire becomes very interested in her in making her a concubine for the Emperor. So every year the Emperor chooses 8 paper girls, which means they're the human, no magic sect of the land. He picks 8 girls to come be his concubines for the year, and so she gets like forced into it. In this society, a lot of families and stuff do really value the concubine position because it does give you a very good setup for the rest of life and for the family and everything. So some families do want you to be one, but she is not into that. The family's not into it. She gets taken anyways. There's also a sapphic romance involved between her and one of the concubines as well. And then, of course, we are trying to dissolve the Empire because there's that political intrigue as well. And the Emperor is not a good guy. I really fucking loved it. It was great. Okay, the last book that I read in April was also a reread, House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This was the Goodreads Awards Challenge for Best Books Club, so we had to read this. There's a live show up on my channel talking all about it. I chose to tab it and annotate it, which I don't usually do too much, but every once in a while when it's a favorite, I will do it. This was so good. So this book follows a girl named Bryce in a world where you have like humans and vampires and fairies and all sorts of things like werewolves and all this shit all in one place. It's an urban fantasy, so it doesn't take place in our world, but it takes place in a world with technology and things like that and magic. So I really loved that style from Sarah J. Maas. She's never written anything like that before, and it was really fun to see. So this is a murder mystery. Bryce is helping search for the murderer of everyone. So I don't like to tell you any more than that. The front flap does tell you more than that, but I went into it the first time not having read the front flap, and it made it all the better. There's a romance-heavy side of this too, along with all of the politics. This is the setup of a series that hasn't come out yet, so be ready to want to die, because this book was really rough in a good way, but it hurts. Yeah, loved it. The way that Sarah J. Maas writes about grief and all of that, so good, so fucking good. So yes, okay, that's everything that I read in April. I had a really great time in April. I don't know what I'm doing in May, but hopefully I'll keep it going, because I have a lot of books that I want to read. I have a lot of books I'm excited for and all that stuff, so I hope that it'll keep this train happening and that I'm not burning out. But we shall see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I make videos every Saturday and Monday, so I'll see you guys very soon with a new one. There's a bunch of shit happening outside my apartment, so sorry. Peace out. Bye.